It's time to party like we're porn stars. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Until Dawn, the movie. I have to specify that because for those who may not know, Until Dawn was a video game that came out, I want to say in 2016 is when it was. Maybe it was 2015. It might have been a decade ago at this point. Either way, Until Dawn is a video game made by, I believe it's Supermassive Games, and it is a fantastic game. It's one of my favorite horror games of all time. It has a fantastic cast, which includes Rami Malek, Hayden Panettiere, so many others. It's awesome. And the game has held up. It got a remake recently, but the game, like as it was originally released, still holds up. It's based on, those cheesy 80s horror movies. It's not meant to be like extremely serious as a horror film or a horror game in this case, because that's like kind of the entire point. It's meant to be cheesy, it's meant to be over the top, it's meant to be kind of silly. But it blends together different styles and genres of horror really well, while also giving us a cast of characters that are so engagingly fun, even if it's just because of how terrible they are, that you just can't help but be invested and interested. The game also does have like diverging paths and everything things can go down, and certain characters can die. Pretty much any character, any of the main characters can die. It just depends on your choices. Now, this is a donation reward for Venom. I don't want to forget to mention that. But the Until Dawn movie, the one thing I do know about it is kind of its biggest controversy. So what I know about the game, or what I know about this movie, is that it is not the same story as the game. Because this has been a huge controversy with the game, or with the movie before it even came out. And then after it came out, that's the main complaint I saw people having. But my view is, why the fuck would you want it to be? Because here's the thing, and this goes for any movie or series that is based on a video game, that is specifically a game that is story focused. When you have a game that is so heavily story focused that it's a lot of people will often describe it as you're playing a movie. You know what I mean? Where it's one of those games where the story is put before gameplay elements, and a lot of the times it'll feel like you're actually there's not as much combat and other things like that. It's mostly quick time events in terms of gameplay, walking around and finding collectibles, stuff like that. Think the Telltale video games or Detroit Become Human, stuff like that. Hey, any chance for me to mention my favorite game of all time, I'm going to take it. But think games like that. That's what Until Dawn was. It's a game where it's you go around getting collectibles, you interact with the environment, you do quick time events, and you make choices. And that's the game. There's not there's not a lot of gameplay in terms of shooting or anything. You don't really do that in the game. You don't have to do a lot of puzzle solving or stuff like that. That's not the kind of game it is. It's a narrative adventure game. And the thing is, when you adapt a game like that into, again, a movie or a show, if you just adapt the exact same story pretty much beat for beat, even if there's little changes here and there, what's the fucking point? Because you have to do either one of two things. You either would have to change things notably, like the Last of Us series did, To where it's like, yeah, it's going to be the basic same story, but there's going to be some notable differences that make it stand out, that make it different enough from the game to where it's going to feel like its own new thing. I haven't seen season 2 of The Last of Us yet, but season 1 did that exceptionally, especially with the Bill episode. Like, my God. um, but with a lot of, like, again, story, narrative adventure games like this, that would be harder to do. Because you would have changing a lot is risky. A lot of fans will hate if you change too much. But the second option would be to just make it like basically a shot-for-shot remake or um, adaptation. And if it's shot-for-shot and if it's pretty much the same thing, what's the point? You've already seen it all. And if you're a really big fan of the game, you probably are going to prefer the game's performances and characters as they're portrayed there better. Which is just going to make you not like the movie. So it's like, people who like think this way are just never going to be happy because no matter what route they go down, it's not going to be what they want. To me, the idea of like wanting it to be exactly the same is silly. Because it's not going to impress you. You're not going to enjoy it because you're just going to compare it to the original. By having it diverge and like follow similar formula or similar ideas and themes while being a different story specifically is always going to work better. It's always going to work better. And again, sometimes you can make it work to where you take one of these kind of narrative adventure games and make it the same basic story with just changing a few things here and there. But that's rare that that's going to happen. Like, I don't like these shows, but to use a great example of probably two of the most well-received video game shows that we've gotten, Arcane and Cyberpunk Edgerunners, have nothing to do with the games outside of the basic concept. Cyberpunk Edgerunners takes place in like what, the same city? And like there's like the same mega corporations or whatnot. That you have like the same cyber psychosis, all of that jazz. That's about it. The actual story is nothing like the game. It's a completely separate new story. But people don't complain about that. Why don't people complain about that? Why are they complaining about Until Dawn when, you know, when Cyberpunk Edgerunners is the same? What about Arcane? Arcane's story is completely separate from the lore of League of Legends, to the point where League of Legends changed lore to match more with Arcane. Arcane's lore and its actual story are completely separate from anything you get within the game or the lore of the regular League of Legends. Yet people don't complain about that. Arcane is exceptionally well received. I mean, season 1 more than season 2 apparently, but still. Season 2 was still exceptionally well received. Both of those shows did exceedingly well. And yet both of them took notable divergence. You know another one that did the same that was also extremely well received? The Fallout series. The Fallout series has nothing to do with the story from any of the Fallout games. It's a completely original story that just, you know, follows the same formula. It follows the same formula with Vault Tech, the nuclear war, you have ghouls, you have all of this other stuff. The Mr. Handy robots. It's like, yeah, all this iconography and stuff, all of these themes and ideas that are in the original Fallout games, but a completely separate story. And that, again, that series also did really well. So why are people suddenly and only complaining about this adaptation in terms of that? It makes no sense. Because again, if they did do a faithful adaptation of the game, it would have insanely like been it just would have been it more than likely would have been bad. Because unless they recast every single person from the game, people are going to complain about every casting choice. It's like, oh, Josh Washington isn't played by Rami Malek. It's like, oh, it's bad because only he could portray that character well. That's exactly what people would have said. And so they actually decide to change things and make it its own original story that just, takes place in the same universe and has the same themes and ideas and that kind of stuff, which is what it should be. And they're like complaining, oh, it's Until Dawn by name only. It's not the actual story. Wah, wah, wah. It's like, grow up. Sorry for this long-ass rant here in these pre-thoughts, by the way. But this is something that's irritated me since, like, again, before the movie even released in theaters. And now that it's out on digital, it's like, it came out, like, I don't know, like a week or two, like maybe a couple weeks ago, something like that. But it's like, this is something that just has come to the forefront of my mind again. And I'm just annoyed by it all over again. Because it is such a stupid argument to make. It is illogical and it is dumb. And again, you're allowed to, like, not like this movie. If you don't like this movie, fine. But at least dislike it based on its own merits and not because it's not what you, like, expected it to be. Like, seriously. And I have no idea what I'm going to think about this movie. I might dislike it. I might think it's a bad movie. But that's not going to be because it strays from the game's story. If I think it's a bad movie, it's going to be because I judged it based on its own merits, based on how the movie is made and, written and acted and stuff like that. That's what I would judge it on. But yeah, I'm excited to see this nonetheless. I have faith and hope in it. But I am going to keep an open mind and judge it purely, again, not on my love for the game, but on my feelings towards the movie and the movie alone. So let's get into this and see exactly what these changes are, because I don't know. I don't know what the actual changes are. I don't know, like, how the story goes or whatnot, outside of, like, the basic concept, I guess. All I know is that there's a time loop thing and that there's a bunch of different types of horror elements that are brought in each loop. But that was, like, shown in the very first trailer, which was the only trailer I watched for this. So that's the basic concept of the film. And I do know that it does take place in the same universe, the same canon continuity as the game. It's just not the story of the game again. So, other than that, I don't know. I also don't know who's in this except for the actor who played Dr. Hill in the game, whose name I have been trying to remember these entire pre-thoughts and have not been able to. It'll mention it, though. He's been in, like, a lot of stuff, like The Big Lebowski and Constantine, and the Castlevania Netflix series. He was Godbrand in that. But yeah, he was in the game. He was Dr. A.J. Hill in the game, and he's playing, I guess, some other character in this. So, again, definitely very curious to see, like, what his role is, but I don't know any other actors in this offhand. And I don't know exactly what the story is going to be. So let's get into it and find out. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I wanted to look up the actress who played Nina, first off. And the actress Odessa A'zion has done various things. I think the most notable that I would recognize is apparently she was in the 2022 Hellraiser remake, which I haven't seen, but I know of. But there's like nothing else I really would know here. But most notably, Odessa A'zion is the daughter of Pamela Adlon, who is the voice actress for Bobby Hill from King of the Hill, as well as Moose from Pepper Ann, and Spinelli from Recess, among many other things. She's a pretty notable name, and that's really cool to me. But yeah, she's been in other stuff, just nothing I recognize, nothing like by name, except again the Hellraiser one. Though there are two movies in set to be coming out. There's Marty Supreme, which is in post production, and She Rides Shotgun, which is just listed here as upcoming. I don't think I've heard of either of them. And she's done some television stuff too, like she was in an episode of Milo Murphy's Law. But I don't think I would recognize her from that, and I don't even know if it's an episode I saw. So, but yeah, that's I think she did a really great job. She was definitely my favorite performance in here, besides Peter Stormare. Um, but let's talk about the movie. So, I also looked up like apparently what the ratings for this was, and it seems like it's pretty mixed. There's some people who really enjoyed it. And apparently, someone even compared it to Cabin at the Woods, which I don't think it's quite on that level of meta commentary and whatnot. Like, Cabin in the Woods was, like, very unique in that regard. But there's definitely a meta nature to it with, like, you know, the expression of these different horror genres and styles and creatures and whatnot. There's definitely a lot of things that could be very much seen as references to other horror films and everything. Plus, obviously, all the references to the game itself through here. Um, and it seems like there's some people who are saying, like, oh, it's good, but not, like, amazing. There's some it's like lacking in originality, which isn't an issue to me because again, that's kind of the point. It's not really meant to be this wholly original thing. It's meant to be a little bit of a meta commentary, but also it's I wouldn't say a full on satire, but it does to a degree satirize like these classic horror tropes because that's what Until Dawn the game did. Until Dawn's game was kind of a satire, a meta satire on cheesy 80s horror. And as such, the game itself is, it very much like lives within that realm. It's very cheesy, it's very over the top. The characters' personalities in a lot of cases are very ridiculous and even in a lot of ways unlikable. It very much reads as a lot of like 80s horror was. And that's the point. And that's clearly the point here with this movie, even though it's a very different story. Like, you can tell, like, watching this movie, it's like, if you try to say, like, this is nothing like the game, you're just wrong. It's like, again, while the story itself is wholly different, outside of, like, obviously the involvement of Dr. Hill and Blackwood Sanatorium and like direct references to like Josh Washington and whatnot. Besides things like that, it's its own story, and that's fine. Like I said, having a direct adaptation would just be kind of pointless and wouldn't make a lot of sense from just a storytelling perspective, because then you're basically just making the game again, except you're just not having interactivity with it. And so they made their own story, and it's a really good story. And two, it wears its inspiration from the game on its sleeve. It's so directly like similar in terms of a lot of the themes and styles, and even there's even certain like aspects of the deaths and everything, and obviously the Wendigos being such a massive part as well goes in line with all the other stuff with like Dr. Hill and the Psycho. All of that is like directly taken from the games. Well, the game. Um, and I've heard some people like some people were saying like, oh, why not just call it like Dark Pictures or something and name it after, or like have it be like a Dark Pictures anthology kind of thing, because it's specifically about Until Dawn. Again, different story, but AJ Hill is not in the other Dark Pictures games. AJ Hill is not in The Quarry. AJ Hill is only in um, Until Dawn. The Wendigos are only in Until Dawn. The Psycho is only in Until Dawn. Josh Washington, all this other stuff. And they decided to make a new story with like this concept that is like very clearly meant to be a love letter to horror, very clearly meant to be this meta commentary on horror, but also is just, an entertaining, fun to watch horror film on its own right. It it's very clearly meant to be like within the same realm, within the same idea as Until Dawn itself. It takes very specifically from that game and not the others. So you really couldn't call it like you couldn't really compare it to the others, to Dark Pictures, to The Quarry, to anything else like that. Um, and it's really interesting in that way because it allows it to feel like it's part of the same universe, but also a completely separate thing. And I wonder if it is like supposed to be seen as like, oh, this is the same universe, like because Josh is shown to have been mentioned, because Blackwood Sanatorium and Dr. Hill is kind of the main bad guy. It's like you kind of wonder a little bit: is this like in the same like literal continuity? Like, is this the same AJ Hill we see in the game? Because that would entirely like change the view of the game. Because in the game, you're kind of led to believe, and we're well past the statute of limitations for spoilers at this point. But in the game, you're led to believe that Dr. AJ Hill isn't real, or that at least the Dr. AJ Hill you're seeing throughout the game isn't real. He's a hallucination. And that maybe there is a real Dr. Hill, but the one you've been seeing throughout the game is fake. That's kind of what it's implying, but this kind of recontextualizes things and makes you wonder if like maybe it wasn't a hallucination, and maybe it was like Dr. Hill in reality is some kind of like malevolent spiritual force, or like death specifically. Like there was that idea I brought up. Maybe he is death. And by the way, that's something that I do feel like you could have even just had during the credits. Um, in the game, like the kind of the main song of the game is "Oh Death," um, and so I'm wondering, like, or not really wondering, but I kind of wish they used that at some points in the movie. And they've even used like a remix of that in like the Dark Pictures games, or at least the first few, maybe not all of them. So it's like I feel like that would have been like just a really cool touch to have that in there too, but that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I'm wondering if this is like supposed to recontextualize Until Dawn, the game, a little bit. I liked the performances. I thought all the actors did a great job. Like I said, Odessa was a standout for me, on top of obviously Peter Stormare. Um, but I think all of them did good, and we got to see like a lot of the great desperation of them going through this, a lot of their emotions really well. Like even Abe as a character, it's like you start to hate him, but then you start to realize it's like none of the others really hold it against him after that, because yeah, they're in like crazy shit too. It's like they understand things are going wrong. Everybody's going to be saying and doing things they don't necessarily mean. The time loop mechanic I think was really well done. I was kind of curious how that was going to like feel in the movie, but I actually think it really worked. I think they made it work really well. I like the different kinds of creatures and stuff we saw. Obviously, we had the like recurring ones, like the Wendigos and the Psycho. But then you saw like other things, like there was that giant humanoid figure that like came down the hall in one of those flashbacks, or not really flashbacks, of the videos. You also saw like the thing, that creature thing, leech or whatever it was, inside her cheek during that. I really like that they did that scene, by the way, the entire showing all these other ideas they had through the phone videos. That was a really smart idea. But you had like the Glore Witch, which is very blatantly a Blair Witch reference. You had that monster that was like waiting outside in the rain and everything. Just all of this like crazy stuff that was like just really cool and fun to see. Like, yeah, there's other kinds of horror they absolutely could have gone into. And there was even stuff like shown in the movie itself that I kind of wish they did, like the werewolf part. Like they specifically showed a werewolf on that paper, but they just didn't do that. They didn't go into that, which is, I don't know. I'm a little sad about that. The spontaneous explosions, though, that might be my favorite because it was so unexpected. Like them just sitting in there, and it's like, okay, so we had been like led to believe like werewolves might be coming next because that was what was shown on the paper and all. Before that scene, they're waiting in the bathroom. You see like, oh, his teeth are falling out and shit. The other person's hands look like they're changing, like claws are coming out, and it's like we realized a lot of that is just due to the Wendigo transformation, but it made me in the moment think, oh, we're gonna get the werewolf stuff now, and then dude just blows up. Dude just starts like heaving and like in extreme pain, and then blows up, and then they all start blowing up because they all drank the water, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's really interesting too because the loop reiterates certain things because again there's the recurring villains throughout these different throughout the different nights, the loops. You have the Psycho, you have the Wendigo, the water continues on. It's like these different antagonistic forces keep going, but other stuff is brought in as well. It's like almost like each night just adds on. It's not like it's entirely new, it adds on to it, which is really fascinating. That's like a really interesting addition to it. Because usually in time loop stuff like this, it is just completely different each time, or it's completely the same. It's one of the others. It's either completely different or it's completely the same. And in this one, having it like be similar but adding new things each time is just, it's more unique. It's more interesting. Um, it does make me wonder though, like, is this some kind of like supernatural pocket dimension they kind of entered? And again, by surviving until dawn, they're able to escape. But like, I guess like Dr. Hill can also have this be in different locations based on what we saw at the end with the snowy cabin area and everything, leading into like just telling us that Dr. Hill's still alive. It kind of makes me wonder if Dr. Hill, actually thinking about that, I wonder if Dr. Hill almost is another victim of this. Instead of being like death himself, maybe he's another victim and he's trapped in this too. And his goal, instead of him becoming a Wendigo, is for some reason he's become a sort of mediator of it. That would, I don't know if that would make a lot of sense, but it is an idea. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Like, I really enjoyed this. I don't care that it was different from the game. In fact, I like that it was different from the game. I feel it needed to be, for the reasons I've already stated. I like what we actually got, like what it was based on its own merits. Because, like I say, when I go into movies, I try to base it on its own merits rather than what other people say about it, and then and rather than like my own preconceived notions, what they might be too. I always am willing to give everything a fair shot. A fair. I tried to combine shot and chance there, and it's like what? A fair shot. I try to give everything a chance because like sometimes things can surprise me even if I didn't expect to like them. And so it's like, yeah, I'm going to judge it based on its own merits, and I think that this is really good. Like, not the best horror movie or anything like by any means, but really good, really enjoyable, and just like a lot of fun. Like I said, there's probably a lot of Easter eggs that I missed, and I'm really curious to like maybe watch this again, try to find them if I can see like if I can find any like reactions or anything, or maybe I'll watch it with my sister. I don't know, but yeah, this was great, and I just uh, I just hope that when Directive 8020 does come out in October, that it ends up really being just another hit from these same creators from the Supermassive. And I definitely plan on playing Directive 8020 on the channel, on the gaming channel. I definitely plan on playing that over there. I don't know if it'll be right away. I hope it is. I want it to be, but I can't promise anything. But we'll see. We'll see. Either way, um, hopefully, hopefully, this world that has kind of been built, this franchise, ends up continuing strong. And I would like to hear your thoughts. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of the movie Until Dawn? Have you played the game? What do you think of it comparatively? Obviously, again, very different, but what did you think going into this? Um, yeah, just let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Thank you to Venom for donating. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.